and welcome to the panel Fueling the Space Tech Growth. We have with us Mr. Vishesh Rajaram, who's Managing Partner, Speciale Invest, and Mr. Srinath Ravichandran, who's co-founder and CEO of Agnikul Cosmos. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hi, good afternoon. Nice to be here.
Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to join us on this panel. Vishesh, let me begin with you. Talk to us about the growing interest of investors in the space tech sector and the factors that are acting as a catalyst for the same.
So I think I'd like to take a couple of steps back from the question. I'd love to talk about what's happening in the sector. And the byproduct of what's happening in the sector is the fact that you have capital that's available for the sector. And our firm, Speciale, we're a deep science and technology fund that invests in pre-seed and seed companies, right? So back in 2017, we opportunistically met a few people who taught us the concept of microsatellites. And then when we went and started to dig deeper there, we began to realize that satellites which were very large were getting reduced in size by 10x and by costs of 10x, right? So basically, there was a large multiplier effect on the size of the satellite. On the other end, we started to realize that access to space, which essentially means rockets, were also getting cheaper due to large privatization efforts going on, right? Which essentially, as a layman for me, unlike Srinath, meant that access to space would increasingly be democratized. Or in other words, more people will have access to space. The ultimate byproduct of that means more people will have access to information on Earth or off Earth or communication around Earth significantly better, right? So unlike most other sectors, this essentially had two levers changing access to space. One being satellite themselves becoming cheaper, smarter, better, and two, the launch itself getting better, which then meant the pace of adoption was sort of very similar or even more than, let's say, the smartphone market. When you look at the smartphone market, two things happened. Smartphones got smarter, cheaper, smaller. Access to data also changed. If I had a smartphone and no access to data, I couldn't do much, right? So you had a two-lever effect, and I think we're having a very similar or even better situation for the space sector, right? And this was sort of our realization, and we were early partners with Srinath at Agnikul, and we made a few other investments as well. And I'm thinking that this is now public information. There are a lot more investors who know of this. There are, of course, global reports. There are a few VCs and few research organizations in the UK, in the US, and upcoming in India as well, like New Space India and a few, who are bridging the information asymmetry gap, right? Back in 2017, maybe a handful of 5 VCs knew this. Now that number is possibly 50 VCs, and soon that will be 200 VCs, right? And a byproduct of that is if you have a very large market, very large TAM, and there's a great opportunity to go build a large multi-billion-dollar company like Agnikul, then you obviously will have more investors coming in looking at that space. The second aspect driving investor interest, in my view, is the progress some of these companies have shown, right? And that's giving confidence that this is not a rabbit hole of R&D, but these are solid companies building great technologies that will have customer traction in the near term and not necessarily in the long term. I think a combination of these two or three things is possibly what's fueling interest in this sector.
Sure, Vishesh, thank you for that insight. Srinath, I'll ask you now. Tell us about the innovation that's happening in the sector, maybe with the 3D printing or other highlights that you yourself are excited for.
Sure. So I think with one of the reasons that space is getting more accessible today is that you're able to actually build business models out of it, right? It's not about government just spending on R&D and doing 1 or 2 missions that would probably benefit the country as a whole. people are able to actually think of business cases, and you're able to put a costing model, you're able to put a pricing model, you're able to show revenue, you're able to show that you're profitable. And all of these are possible because of some of the innovations in technology that are actually happening, right? So, and I think you touched upon a very interesting aspect of manufacturing, which is, say, 3D printing, for example. Right? So 3D printing is good for any aerospace industry. I wouldn't just say space tech, I mean, even for airlines. I mean, pretty much anything that's flying or anything that has to be light and still, inexpensive, I think it's a reasonable alternative, right? So, because when you 3D print something, you're not actually taking a solid block of material and carving out what you want. That's usually subtractive, right? When they say 3D printing, they call it additive manufacturing, which is basically you put metal where you want and you weld where you want. So that kind of an approach actually obviously helps in reducing mass, right? Because there are no inaccessible areas. It's a little bit like you build exactly what you want, and the rest of it, you don't even bother putting material in there. So that's something that's really catching up. What we have done at Agnikul is take it a bit further. We have made an entire rocket engine 3D printed, and that too, basically what comes out of a 3D printer in one shot is an entire engine. So what we call a single piece rocket engine, for example, right? Wherein everything from start to finish of the rocket engine, like any engine, you have some fuel getting in, and like any engine, you'll have an exhaust getting out, right? This entire piece of thing happens in one piece of hardware. So that's something that we have done at Agnikul, and I'm very proud of the team that has done it. But beyond that, I think there are other innovations too. I would like to talk about two trends that are happening. Right, one in space tech is this universal trend of using off-the-shelf available products in electronics for space missions. Right. See, if you look at history, what happened is a lot of the rocket technology or satellite technology started off in the missile space, and missiles usually cannot fail. You simply cannot afford a failure there, right? And so when people extended that to space technology, this is still the regime when governments were the guys basically doing all of this. You had that sort of baggage come in, and people held everything to an extremely high standard, and added to the fact that technology was not there to reliably test it on ground. Simulations were not possible. So you basically had to do an overkill in terms of safety factor. Now this is changing. Now you can do a lot of really good testing on the ground. You can actually, afford to take a little bit of calculated risk in, using components that are possibly available off the shelf, and package it just for the space environment. So that's another thing that's really reducing the price across the board, and that's something that's actually helping these things become a business. You're not talking about everything being 10x the cost of what it would be off the shelf. The third thing that's happening, which I also kind of hinted upon briefly, was the computational power availability. Right now, everyone has access to cloud. One can go buy a 36-core machine at say 10 lakhs or so, and run really powerful simulations, which drastically reduce the error in replicating reality. So what that means is before you touch hardware, you already have a very good idea on what you're actually going to get out of your hardware. So this reduces iterations. It helps faster iterations, ultimately again reducing business costs. So I guess these are some of the trends, innovations in manufacturing, use of off-the-shelf products, and computational power available to everyone, which is what is driving this, this entire bunch of innovation happening in space.
Thank you, Srinath. Vishesh, let me ask you, what Srinath mentioned some trends, of course, but what are the midterm and long-term changes that you see coming up in the sector?
I think in the, I'll start with the end user, right? I think midterm to long term is information on Earth, and, be it sensors that are collecting pictures of Earth, or, reading star images of Earth, or, giving you multispectral, hyperspectral images of Earth. I think quality of health data of Earth will be a lot better, a lot more accessible than before, and a lot more cheaper. That's the end result. If you were to step back from that, you would find advancements in communications that essentially allow you to capture the health of Earth sooner, faster, better. If you step further behind that, you will find that there are a lot more satellites going to space. specifically the kind of satellites that Agnikul will take to space, which is, small satellites, which are hundreds or less than 100 kgs in size. And a step below to that will be ability to launch when you want, where you want, which large rockets can fundamentally not do because they're not built for that, which is where companies like Agnikul will thrive because they have the ability to build rockets clearly almost just in time and launch as and when needed.
Sure. Thank you, Vishesh. Srinath, now if you could tell us a little bit about the challenges in the ecosystem that are there and what needs to be factored in for the scalability of the space tech sector.
Sure. So I think globally, anyone building space tech will have to, first of all, be little more accommodative in terms of timelines, generally speaking, right? You can't, like if you're talking about a business or an investment, getting the same kind of timeline there for as in comparison, let's say SaaS or some other, kind of a company might be a little challenging. It's going to take a little more time. Of course, the returns are going to be much higher as well, but it's going to take the time to get there. So it needs a little bit of patient capital to come in. You're not better off with people who are looking for quick money. That's not how things are going to go. Second thing I think is rigor from the get-go. You'll have to balance out the the flexibility and the innovation that comes within a startup with extraordinary amount of rigor, because in the end space is not very forgiving. Right? You do have effort and margins in terms of masses, and things have to work correctly. You basically have one shot at it, and that kind of all of those risks come in, which basically can be offset only with extreme rigor from the get-go. So you can't do it casually, and it's harder to balance it, particularly when you're trying to build a innovative team where you're encouraging flexibility and being nimble, and at the same time also holding people to things like documentation, doing things like noting down every single thing about version control and those kind of things. That I think is another challenge to keep in mind and overcome. Third thing I would say is going to be in terms of getting that first credibility out. Particularly when you're building, if you're an existing company building a new product or a new company building a new product, there's always going to be a little bit of skepticism in the market about how things will work, because again, it's just a hard benchmark to beat, right? So it's important to come out and put out a lot of prototypes, show consistent improvement month after month or quarter after quarter to your customers, because they're not just going to directly come and say, okay, yeah, here is Agnikul, I'll immediately buy it. Stuff, right? So whatever customer interest we have gathered has also been over a period of time where they've actually seen us grow from just having an idea to now actually showing out our engine test results and so on. So that's another thing I would say. Coming to India itself, I mean, the three problems I mentioned before are global. Coming to India itself, I think what used to be a huge obstacle that has completely been taken out is policy, right? Where there was a little bit of confusion, or I would say a gray area in terms of whether you can do a certain set of space missions from India, whether it's possible, who is the person to give you permission, would you have a single point nodal agency and all that. But all of that has been now taken care of in India, basically by the announcement of this new department within the Department of Space called the IN-SPACe, right? Which is specifically meant to authorize private people who are doing entire missions by themselves. So I think that's something that's a welcome change, but still things will have to, things are really going well there. But of course, the last bit of work has to be done to get that close. So something to still keep in mind, even though I don't see it as a real challenge as such. And finally, I think access to capital, now capital is flowing definitely better than say when we started, and then, we had Speciale and Vishesh partner with us. Things are different now. But that said, I think it's going to still take a little more of effort from the founder standpoint or from a business standpoint to convince investors that there is a reliable business model. That's I think always the case when new sector is just booming. But that's basically that's another challenge to think of, at least from an India standpoint. Yeah, other than that, I think it's pretty much like any other thing. No special challenges otherwise. Space is space, so you need to think of these few factors before jumping in and getting it.
Thank you. Thank you, Srinath. Vishesh, I would like to hear the other side as well and see what do you think are the challenges and what can stakeholders do to bridge that gap. And now the stakeholders can mean various other people like innovators, investors, academia, policy. So if you'd like to elaborate on that.
Sure. No, I think firstly, this is a great time to be in this business in this country, right? The country has taken note that there is an opportunity to allow private participation in space, and they know that the market is very large. And most importantly, they know that the nation is well equipped to build in terms of talent, in terms of competency, and in terms of credibility. And I think that's the welcome break for young companies like Agnicool, which are essentially working very closely with the country to go and build some of these. And I think it's fantastic to see the support that they're getting and the encouragement that they're getting to do this, right? So I don't see it as a challenge. I think that's a great that's great for where they are. I think the important part which Srinath alluded is to ensure that all stakeholders in the business understand and have the right expectations of the business. This is a business that specifically launched is of its kind, where it could be very profitable and scale very quickly. And yes, there will be 3 to 4 years that you have to put through to get to that stage. And that's the sort of resilience, perseverance, and patience that the founders need to carry. And that will rub off on the sort of investors they partner with. So I'm not necessarily telling you the challenges. I'm just telling you, I'm flipping it around and saying these are the things you need to be successful. Otherwise, it's very easy to say, oh, it's long gestation period, it's not clear policy, and it's very easy to dish something that's deep tech. You have to flip it around and say, okay, what are the 2 or 3 things that need to be right for it to work? And then see if that's going to happen.
Noted. That's an interesting take. Srinath, is talent also one of the challenges for you?
So I would say no, mainly because I think working out of India, so there are 2 things, right? One is you have a lot of engineers coming out every year, even from reputed institutions. So in general, getting those people excited about space tech is not that hard. I mean, everyone grows up, seeing ISRO, and at least 4 engineers, people have actually chosen to be in India. They already understand that this is cool stuff to build. The other good thing that's actually running out of India is the fact that we are a spacefaring nation, and there is no doubt about India's presence in the globally as far as space tech is concerned. I mean, we are considered among the top in the world as far as space tech is concerned, right? So the community here that ISRO is churning out, particularly people who are retired from ISRO, for example, right? People who have with their own hands built the PSLVs of India, the GSLV of India, the INSAT satellites of India. I mean, these are people who have years and years of experience, and mostly from my experience, I've seen them to be extremely generous and kind-hearted and wanting to pass the baton of knowledge to the next person, right? So the way we work is to sandwich the really young folks who are really passionate about doing something in space with people who have already been there, done that, right? Wherein, so for example, you're getting people who have already built tens of rocket engines for ISRO to pair with someone who's trying to bring in a new concept of manufacturing and engine making. And I think that clicks really well. So it's mostly good. Of course, say, for example, if you're going to be competing in a placement with, say, when we say, for example, Uber is hiring and Agnicool is hiring, probably it's not that easy to compete directly in terms of compensation, right? But again, I think that's mostly offset by people who really want to accomplish something in engineering. We have been able to find people like there are enough people who are doing that kind of work, who have that passion in them. So good people is generally hard, right? I think for any startup or any project for that matter, getting good people is generally hard. I wouldn't say nothing, it's not more special than that as far as aerospace is concerned. In fact, slightly easier because space tech is cool and it has a certain set of people just really, really passionate about that stuff. That's what I've seen in Agnikul, and I think that's what probably other companies are seeing as well.
Sure. Thank you, Srinath.